Think about it for a second. Two families living their lives way back in the 19th century. Worlds apart, really.
Yeah, seemingly pretty ordinary lives back then.
Exactly. And they probably had absolutely no idea what paths their children and grandchildren would take.
But hidden in those beginnings, you find the actual roots of, well, two of America's most famous families, the Fitzgeralds and the Kennedys.
So today, we're going to explore those really crucial early years. We're drawing heavily from Doris Kearns Goodwin's fantastic book, The Fitzgeralds and the Kennedys.
It's a great source. We'll look at their immigrant roots, the hurdles they faced early on.
And values, right? The things that sort of set them on their future paths.
Definitely.
Oh, and before we jump right in, we wanted to mention Mindful Moments. It's a YouTube channel.
Right. They do these AI-powered analyses of books. It's actually a pretty interesting way to get you thinking, critically about different texts and ideas.
Yeah, spark some reflection. Worth checking out. Okay, so the Fitzgeralds. Where do we begin?
Let's start with John Francis Fitzgerald, Honey Fitz. He was born in Boston's North End, 1863.
And that world, it was incredibly tough for immigrant families then.
Oh, absolutely brutal. Goodwin points out that something like 3 out of 10 infants didn't even make it through their first year. It's stark.
Wow.
Yeah, his father, Thomas, was so worried he apparently rushed the baptism on a freezing cold day. Just shows you how precarious life felt.
It really does. And Thomas, Cocky Tom, he'd been in America for what, over 10 years by then?
Yeah, but he still sort of saw Boston as temporary, like a way station.
That's interesting. So not quite putting down permanent roots yet?
Seems like it. That was common for many early immigrants. It probably fostered this need to be resilient, always ready to grab an opportunity.
Which maybe we see later on, right?
Could be. His main focus then was just getting established, supporting the family there in the North End.
And for those Irish immigrants, community was just...
Yeah, totally. Especially in the North End. Those Catholic church festivals Goodwin describes, they weren't just religious.
They were more like lifelines back to Ireland.
Exactly. Weaving those traditions into their new Boston lives, holding on to memories.
Which makes the school situation even tougher to read about.
Yeah, the Boston public schools back then, heavily Protestant-oriented. And the prejudice against Irish Catholics was, well, undeniable.
Goodwin mentions William O'Connell, later a cardinal.
Right. He called his early schooling perfect torture. Said he felt a real bitter antipathy aimed at them.
Just awful. But John F. Fitzgerald, Honey Fitz, he started to make his mark even then.
He did. Clearly had a sharp mind, especially with numbers. And amazingly, after just 3 years, he gets promoted to the Eliot Grammar School.
Which is a big deal.
Huge deal for a North End kid. Goodwin notes less than 10% made it that far. Speaks volumes about his early drive.
And amongst all that struggle, you still had moments of real family happiness, like his sister Rosanna being born.
Oh yeah, in 1870. After 8 boys. Apparently it was a massive celebration. Really highlights how central family was.
It's quite a contrast, isn't it? This tight-knit immigrant community and then the reaction of the established Bostonians.
Definitely. Goodwin talks about how many old Bostonians, seeing the neighborhoods change, kind of retreated.
To places like Beacon Hill, the Back Bay.
Right. And they embraced this sort of Anglophilism, really admiring British culture, almost like creating distance.
Mm-hmm. And within the Fitzgerald family, Rosanna's life. Wow, 12 children in 21 years.
It's hard to even imagine the sheer physical toll on women back then, the constant cycle of pregnancy, childbirth, raising a huge family.
Yet, despite his family's North End roots, John F. developed a real pride in Boston itself, didn't he?
Seems so. There's that nice anecdote about him showing the city off to an English couple, pointing out Faneuil Hall and such.
Suggests he was really starting to feel like it was his city.
Yeah, a growing sense of belonging. And ambition, too, which sets the stage nicely for thinking about the Kennedys.
It does. And then, 1890... Rose Elizabeth Fitzgerald is born, the future matriarch.
And her father was apparently overjoyed, running through the streets, telling everyone.
Okay, so let's shift focus a bit. Joe Kennedy, born 1888, a slightly different picture early on.
Very different, yeah. He's described as having this assured step even as a little kid. Found success pretty quickly at Boston Latin.
Class president, baseball captain.
Exactly. Already showing that confidence and leadership knack.
And it's fascinating that their paths crossed so early. Rose and Joe.
Isn't it? 1895, a joint family picnic up in Maine. She's 5, he's 7.
And both their dads, John Fitzgerald and P.J. Kennedy, are there.
Just one of those little moments you look back on and think, wow.
It's also worth remembering the wider context, like higher education back then, Harvard Medical School.
Hmm.
Standards weren't exactly sky high initially.
No, Goodwin mentions you could fail quite a few subjects and still graduate. It actually took a scandal for President Eliot to really tighten things up.
Right. Meanwhile, John F. Fitzgerald's own political ambitions are taking off.
Yeah, and he showed some real guts, politically speaking. Didn't bother with the lower offices.
Just went straight for the state senate.
Straight for it. Started his Jefferson Club, ran these really energetic campaigns that appealed to younger people, and he won.
He also seemed willing to stand up for other immigrant groups, not just the Irish.
That's a key point. There's that story of him confronting Henry Cabot Lodge about rights for Jewish and Italian immigrants.
Saying they had just as much claim to America.
Exactly. He even went to President Cleveland about an immigration bill.
Do you think growing up with that, seeing her father involved in politics, shaped Rose's view of the world early on?
That's a great question. It's hard to say definitively from the book about early influence, but you have to imagine being in that household gave her some awareness.
But it also meant her father was away a lot.
Right. His political career kept him constantly busy, which meant his wife, Josie, really carried the load at home with the kids.
And Goodwin suggests Rose later had this maybe idealized view of her dad.
Possibly. Perhaps a way to kind of square that absence with her love for him.
But there were definitely sweet moments. She talked about meeting him at the train station, right?
Yeah. Fondly recalled that excitement. Waiting for him, getting scooped up, maybe getting a little surprise. Those memories stuck.
And then his ambition grows even bigger. He aims for mayor.
Yep. Promises to revitalize Boston. But then comes the reality of politics.
Making promises is one thing.
Fulfilling them, especially when you have political debts and obligations, is another. Like that controversial appointment of James Doyle.
And it wasn't just him, right? His brother Jim played a role too.
Yeah, that's an interesting dynamic. John was the face, the charisma. Jim was more behind the scenes, handling finances, providing support.
And young Rose, what was she like as a girl?
Goodwin paints her as quite vibrant. A dancing smile, bright, full eyes. And apparently, unlike her mother's generation, Rose was encouraged to speak her mind, express herself.
That probably helped build that strong character she was known for later.
Very likely. Meanwhile, her father's mayorship hit some bumps. Commission reports, that whole coal supply controversy.
Testing his leadership skills for sure.
Definitely. And then comes a really pivotal moment for Rose personally. Her father's decision about college.
She wanted Wellesley, right?
She did. But he decided on the convent of the Sacred Heart instead.
A very different kind of education.
Completely different from Dorchester High where she'd been. Huge emphasis on, moral conduct, strict discipline, religion.
Was it a difficult adjustment for her?
Initially, yes. Goodwin mentions she found it hard to make friends at first. But eventually, she seemed to embrace the structure, the focus on moral development.
And she traveled too.
Yeah, a trip to Germany with a friend, Agnes. That seemed to really deepen her religious feelings. She was even named a Child of Mary, which was a significant honor at the convent.
It's kind of ironic, isn't it? The Finance Commission, which gave Fitzgerald so much trouble,
actually ended up helping him in a way. The charter reforms it led to created a new path for his re-election campaign.
And he cleverly co-opted that term, Fitzgeraldism.
Right. Turned it around to link himself with progressive policies, smart politics.
And Rose, she's still engaged intellectually, going to lectures.
Oh, yeah. And she was even at the opening night of Singh's Playboy of the Western World.
Which caused a huge stir.
Massive controversy. Some Irish Americans felt it didn't portray the refined image they wanted to project. But Rose was there, taking it all in.
But she also clearly embraced her heritage, accompanying her father to events honoring Irish culture.
Absolutely. So looking back at all this, these formative years, you really see these powerful themes emerging.
Yeah, that immigrant ambition is undeniable.
And the absolute importance of family and community ties, plus how those early school experiences shaped them.
And you see these strong personalities developing in both Rose and Joe, even as kids.
For sure. All these early experiences, the good and the challenging, they were just fundamental. They really laid the groundwork for, everything that came later.
Exactly. They shaped their values, how they saw the world, and really set the stage for the legacies they eventually built. We really encourage you to check out the Mindful Moments YouTube channel for more of those kinds of deep analyses of books that shape how we see things.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed this discussion today, you can find our other explorations of fascinating lives and historical moments wherever you usually listen.
Definitely. If you found this look into the Fitzgerald and Kennedy beginnings insightful, please do subscribe and maybe share it with friends who appreciate digging a bit deeper into history.
We'll put links to purchase Goodwin's book and ways to support our work in the show notes. But most importantly, we really hope this conversation gets you thinking critically about legacies, the big historical ones, and maybe even the ones closer to home.